had always considered myself a little bit on the other side of the law, you know.
And I had one blue sock, one red sock. They thought I needed direction.
Nick Nolte has spent decades in Hollywood, carving out a career defined by raw intensity and an uncompromising devotion to his craft. He is not the kind of actor who takes the safe route. His performances always carried an unpredictable, almost dangerous energy. Audiences were drawn to his honesty on screen, but away from the cameras, Nolte's presence was not always so warmly received. Throughout his long career, Nolte often clashed with co-stars, tested the patience of directors, and built a reputation as both a powerhouse talent and a storm few wanted to endure. Eddie Murphy was one of the first big names to feel Nolte's volatile temperament. When 48 Hours hit theaters in 1982, it not only became a landmark in the buddy cop genre but also revealed the combustible pairing of two very different stars. Murphy, just beginning his meteoric rise, lit up the screen with charm, while Nolte embodied the hardened, broken-down cop with nothing left to lose. Their chemistry was undeniable, but the truth off-screen was more complicated. "We didn't get along," Murphy later admitted. That real tension spilled into their performances, giving the film a gritty authenticity that audiences could feel.
"We ain't partners, we ain't brothers, and we ain't friends. I'm putting you down and keeping you down until Gans is locked up or dead. And if Gans gets away, you're gonna be sorry you ever met me."
I'm already sorry.
Nolte's deep immersion into his role, while powerful, also made it difficult for Murphy, who had to navigate his co-star's unpredictable presence. When the two actors reunited for another 48 Hours, the dynamic had already changed. The sequel lacked the raw, unfiltered spark of the first film. By then, Murphy had become a global superstar, no longer needing to match Nolte's grizzled intensity. Despite rewrites and reshoots, the follow-up never managed to capture the same volatile energy that made their original collaboration so compelling.
How's your relationship with Nick? Drop that gun! Serious and look me in the eye. Well, he looked me in the eye, but I was like, I'm from comedy, so instead of getting intense, I go like, "Hey, don't point that gun at me." And I'm doing this comedy, but he's so intense, like we had to shoot the scene like over and over again.
The tension between them never evolved into any kind of lasting respect. Their collaboration ended with the film, and the two never worked together again. Julia Roberts, however, had even less tolerance for Nolte's methods. The 1994 romantic thriller I Love Trouble was meant to sparkle on screen, but behind the cameras the production became a battlefield. From the very beginning, the relationship between Nolte and Roberts was toxic. "He can be completely charming and very nice," Roberts admitted in an interview, before adding a sharp dose of honesty in an industry that usually buries feuds. Nolte, never one to stay silent, fired back, "She's not a nice person." That animosity bled into the film itself. Instead of the effortless chemistry expected from a Hollywood romantic pairing, their performances felt stiff, their interactions strained. Rumors even spread that many of their scenes were shot separately, with body doubles filling in for moments where closeness was unavoidable. Their dislike wasn't the result of one incident, but of clashing personalities. Nolte thrived in chaos and unpredictability, while Roberts, then a rapidly rising star, demanded focus and control. To Nolte, disorder brought depth. To Roberts, it was needless disruption. The film flopped at the box office, and neither actor seemed bothered that their collaboration was over. If Nolte and Roberts had been doomed from the start, his pairing with Tommy Lee Jones proved to be another kind of storm. Both men were cut from the same cloth, brooding, uncompromising, and intense to the core. In Blue Sky, 1994, Jessica Lange stole the spotlight with a towering performance, but behind the curtain, the atmosphere remained tense. Nolte and Jones, each known for his seriousness, shared the screen like two forces unwilling to bend. Their interactions weren't loud arguments or public feuds, but there was a stiffness, a battle for presence that never eased. Some actors thrive on such tension, and in this case, it fueled performances that carried a unique edge.
There is a tremendous fear that overwhelms you, and when this fear comes upon you...
Not everyone thrived under such conditions. For some, Nolte's intensity was inspiring. For others, it was simply draining. Tommy Lee Jones, always the consummate professional, delivered exactly what was required, but there was little space left for warmth or camaraderie.
And they work totally differently. Like with Tommy Lee Jones, who is a really brilliant guy, I would not say anything to him about his character. I cast him, he knew the guy he was playing, he knew what to do, and I would just say, look, you come in that door over there, you come over here, you say something to her, you sit down over here, you get up, you go over there, you stop and think, then you come back, say something else, then you go out the door. He said, let me see if I have that right. I come in that door, I say something to her, then I sit down here, I think, I go over there, think a little more, come back, say something to her, then I leave. That's it. He'd say to the assistant cameraman, he said, son, come here, put a mark over there, put a mark over here, put a mark over there, I'm ready. And we'd shoot it, and it was perfect.
Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line became another test of Nolte's volatile energy. This ambitious war epic gathered an ensemble of heavyweights, and Nolte stepped into the role of Colonel Tall, a man consumed by frustration and an obsessive drive to etch his name into history. The part suited him perfectly, yet behind the scenes, harmony was scarce. Val Kilmer, himself notorious for being difficult, crossed paths with Nolte, and their clashing styles only heightened the tension. Malick's directing style was lyrical and methodical, demanding patience, but Nolte was anything but restrained. He attacked each scene like a caged animal desperate to break free, while Kilmer brought his own brand of intensity. The production, sprawling and chaotic by design, became even more unpredictable with Nolte in the mix. The film's fragmented structure meant many actors saw their performances cut down or erased entirely. Nolte's material remained intact, but not all his co-stars were as fortunate, leading to frustration across the cast. The project required long stretches of patience, something Nolte had never been known for. By the early 2000s, Nolte's reputation was firmly cemented when Hulk entered production. Ang Lee's unconventional vision leaned heavily on psychology and inner conflict rather than spectacle. Nolte was cast as Bruce Banner's father, a tortured figure bordering on myth, and he delivered a performance both manic and unsettling. Some found his work riveting, while others found it exhausting. Reports from the set described Nolte as unpredictable, his heavy improvisation keeping cast and crew on edge. He threw himself into the role recklessly, creating moments that could be either genius or disruptive, depending on who was watching. That unpredictability has always defined him, both his greatest strength and his most divisive trait. Directors and co-stars who embraced spontaneity often praised him, seeing the brilliance that came from chaos. Others walked away frustrated, remembering him more as a challenge than an ally. In the end, Nolte's career has remained a study in contradictions, a balance of brilliance and volatility, discipline and chaos. He is an actor of remarkable depth, yet his very presence can unsettle those who share the stage with him. Fiercely devoted to his craft, Nolte has never conformed to the mold of a conventional leading man. Many of his finest performances have been born out of conflict, whether drawn from reality or stirred up in the moment. His clashes on set have rarely been about personal grudges. More often, they have sprung from his refusal to blunt his sharp edges. Looking back at his most infamous battles, it is clear that Nolte never pursued conflict simply for the sake of it. He is not the kind of actor who delights in being difficult. Instead, he is a man who refuses to dilute his work, pouring every ounce of himself into a role no matter what the cost. For those who can meet him at that level, the result is explosive, even electrifying. For those who cannot, the experience can feel overwhelming. His legacy has never been about smooth collaboration, but about raw, fearless artistry. Nolte has walked for decades on the narrow line between brilliance and destruction, and he has never once looked over his shoulder. In a business that prizes polish, comfort, and predictability, Nolte has remained untamed. He does not play by the rules, nor does he care to make others comfortable. To some, that makes him difficult. To others, unforgettable. Nick Nolte has never been the kind of actor Hollywood could easily contain. He did not arrive on the screen with the clean-cut charm of a Robert Redford or the effortless cool of a Paul Newman. Instead, Nolte came with something raw, something jagged, a presence that felt unpredictable, even dangerous. His face, weathered even in youth, carried a restlessness, a refusal to conform, and this refusal would go on to define not just his career but his entire legacy in Hollywood. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, in 1941, Nolte's path to stardom was anything but straightforward. His early life was marked by rebellion and missteps. He was a restless young man, often in trouble, and it seemed for a time that his energy would burn itself out before it could be directed toward anything meaningful. He tried his hand at athletics, drifting toward football with the same intensity he would later bring to acting, but the discipline required to succeed was never his strong suit. He was searching, stumbling from one path to another, until eventually he found his calling in performance. Even then, his entry into acting was not smooth or glamorous. It was rough, jagged, much like the man himself. By the 1970s, Nolte began to make an impression on television audiences, but it was in the 1980s that he truly exploded onto the scene. 48 Hours, 1982, marked the arrival of a new kind of actor. Gruff, unshaven, and uncompromising. Playing alongside a young Eddie Murphy, Nolte embodied a cop who was not simply tired, but broken, cynical, and clinging to whatever scraps of meaning remained in his life. Murphy, meanwhile, brought charisma and lightness, and the clash between the two became the film's lifeblood. Off-screen, however, the friction was real. "We didn't get along," Murphy admitted later. And yet that tension, born from Nolte's refusal to soften his edges, bled into the film, creating a chemistry that no script could manufacture. This became Nolte's pattern. He was an actor of profound depth, capable of pulling truths out of himself that few others dared to reach for. But working with him could be an exhausting experience. Directors often didn't know what to expect, co-stars sometimes recoiled from his intensity, and Nolte himself never seemed willing to compromise for the sake of harmony. His philosophy was simple: bring everything you have, or don't bother at all. Julia Roberts, one of Nolte's most famous co-stars, discovered this the hard way during the production of I Love Trouble, 1994. What was intended as a romantic thriller turned into a battlefield of clashing personalities. Roberts, still in the ascent of her career, valued professionalism, order, and control. Nolte, by contrast, thrived in chaos, seeing in it an opportunity to dig deeper into character. Their relationship quickly soured. Roberts publicly remarked, "He can be completely charming and very nice," before admitting he was also completely disgusting. Nolte did not hesitate to fire back, "She's not a nice person." Rumors circulated that the two filmed many of their scenes separately, relying on body doubles to make the illusion of intimacy work. The movie itself fizzled, weighed down not only by its script but by the undeniable lack of chemistry between its leads. If his dynamic with Roberts was toxic from the outset, his relationship with Tommy Lee Jones on the set of Blue Sky, 1994, was different, though no less intense. Both actors were cut from similar cloth: brooding, uncompromising, determined to dominate the frame. Jessica Lange, the star of the film, delivered a performance that would win her an Academy Award, but behind the camera, the atmosphere was tense. Nolte and Jones were not engaged in shouting matches or outright hostility, but there was a stiffness, a constant battle of wills. Each man seemed unwilling to yield, and while the friction did not derail the production, it left behind a sense that two storms had collided, leaving little room for calm. This was Nolte's essence: not malicious, not petty, but relentlessly intense. He did not seek out conflict for its own sake. He was not a diva in the traditional sense, nor was he interested in the theatrics of Hollywood feuds. Instead, his clashes stemmed from the same source as his brilliance: a refusal to dilute himself, a refusal to give anything less than his all, even when that all overwhelmed those around him. On the set of Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line, 1998, Nolte again brought his fire to bear. Cast as Colonel Tall, a man driven by frustration and ambition, Nolte was perfect for the role. Malick's direction was quiet, poetic, demanding patience and subtlety. Nolte, however, was anything but restrained. He was a caged animal, pacing, erupting, pouring rage into his performance. The clash of styles created a volatile energy that translated into one of Nolte's most memorable roles. Yet behind the scenes, his unpredictable nature unnerved co-stars, including Val Kilmer, who was himself infamous for being difficult. With multiple intense personalities colliding, the set became a crucible of competing energies. Some actors found the experience draining, others invigorating, but nobody walked away untouched by Nolte's force. By the early 2000s, Nolte's reputation was firmly established. When Ang Lee cast him as Bruce Banner's father in Hulk, 2003, it was a bold choice. Lee envisioned the film not as a standard superhero spectacle, but as a psychological exploration of trauma and repression. Nolte's portrayal was raw, erratic, and unnerving. He improvised heavily, throwing himself into scenes with a reckless abandon that divided audiences and critics alike. Some hailed his performance as genius, others dismissed it as excessive, even disruptive. Once again, Nolte's gift and his curse were intertwined. His unpredictability could elevate a role into something unforgettable, or it could destabilize the entire production. Throughout his career, Nolte has been described in contradictions. He is brilliant but volatile, magnetic but exhausting, a professional who often alienates those around him. His best performances are often fueled by conflict, whether real or manufactured. Yet to view him as a man who thrives on being difficult is to misunderstand him. Nolte is not driven by ego or a desire to dominate for its own sake. He is driven by a deep, unyielding commitment to his craft. He refuses to smooth out the rough edges, because to do so would be, in his eyes, a betrayal of truth. This philosophy has defined his legacy. 4 co-stars who could meet him on his level, the results were electric. For those who could not, the experience was draining. His body of work is filled with highs and lows, but through it all runs a consistent thread, fearless performance. Nolte has never been interested in playing it safe. He has walked a tightrope between genius and self-destruction, often leaning dangerously close to the edge, but never looking back. Even as his off-screen life sometimes mirrored the chaos of his characters, with personal struggles, substance abuse, and arrests making headlines, Nolte remained defiant. He never sought to polish his image or sanitize his reputation for Hollywood's sake. In an industry built on predictability and polish, Nolte carved out a space defined by risk, volatility, and an uncompromising pursuit of authenticity. Some may call him difficult. Others may call him unforgettable. Both are true. Nick Nolte has spent decades testing the patience of his colleagues and the tolerance of his industry, but in doing so, he has left behind performances that remain etched into cinema history. He is not the kind of actor who makes things comfortable. He is the kind of actor who makes things matter. And that, in the end, is why Nick Nolte remains one of the most fascinating, maddening, and essential figures Hollywood has ever produced.